And that's where we got to address. We don't have the state doesn't have the capacity to go out and bond $1 billion, $2 billion, $3 billion. And apparently what's in the process right now is the legislature comes back in February. They're intending to bond $2 to $3 billion for MakeWorks projects. Now, my background's in construction for 33 years. So I'm cutting my own throat in this aspect of saying the state should not be spending money on MakeWorks projects. But a lot of the projects that the state spends money on are not constitutional projects. I have no problem with the state spending its resources where it's constitutionally obligated to do so. My problem is the state spends money in a whole lot of areas across the entire segment of our society in areas that it's not constitutionally authorized to do so.
So in other words, once you're elected to represent your district, you won't be voting for the Sheet Music Museum?
No. There's
do you know
or the Viking Stadium, which is another issue we discussed at the last
right. The Viking Stadium
taping.
Is a big one. Do you know the state of Minnesota have already received $2.5 billion in bonding requests, and just today, Hennepin County came out requesting $64 million in bonding requests.
Correct.
Did they miss the memo? We're broke.
Yes, they did. They did. But Sue, we keep reelecting them.
I know.
We don't have anybody to blame but ourselves. We won't step up and run for office, and we don't bother holding them accountable by electing somebody else. Even if at this point, at some point it seems like even a dog would be a better choice of what we have than running for office, because we go down to state capitol and watch what's going on. It's just amazing what happens. As an example, we are going to discuss a little bit today about the forecast that came out in November, which just came out last week.
Yeah, before we go into the forecast, why don't you describe for the viewers what district do you represent? And where would they go to find more information about you? You're exactly right. 95% of the incumbents are reelected. 95%. Right. They don't deserve to be there. They've betrayed we the people.
They do. They have.
And but let's hear about.
I represent Columbia Heights, all of Hilltop, northwest portion of St. Anthony, and about half of Fridley is the area that I would represent. That was your one question. What was your second question? Do you remember, Sue? I got you on the spot now. What was your second question?
No, the website.
The website. Oh, it's timutzforhouse.com. That's the website. And I'm actually on Facebook, too. If I'm really working hard at trying to get Facebook figured out.
I love Facebook. I think it's a fabulous medium, and it's so nice to see candidates coming out there with websites, it's not just a phone call, which is nice. The beauty is you can call you, Tim, and you'll call the person back if they have a question. But you can email, Facebook, phone, anything. Being able access to the candidates, I think, is crucial.
People might not like what I have to say, or I might not tell them what they want to hear, but they're going to hear my perspective of what the truth is. They're
going to like what you have to say. They're not going to like what they're hearing.
Right.
Yeah.
There you go. That could be.
Because you have. Following the Constitution in itself is absolutely amazing.
It makes it real easy to have a discussion with people, because all you do is flip through the pages and see where your position is. I don't have to create a position. My position has been created already by that document.
Right. And the spending and the jobs are going to be two main issues this particular legislative session, I think.
Yes.
And you're right, a lot of people won't step up, they won't run for office, so again, I want to say thank you.
Yes.
We need more candidates like you. The people in Fridley and Hilltop and St. Anthony and Columbia Heights are really lucky to have you.
And they need to get out and vote in November and get out and participate now.
And I'm sure they're going to see your big green bus.
Yes, it's around. It's rolling around town. Yes.
It's fabulous.
Yes.
All right. Budget forecast came out this week. It isn't pretty.
No, it's not pretty. And I don't know where you want to start on it, but I'm going to just jump in on a couple items. I'll jump in on a couple items. This is a 7-page document that was handed out at the meeting last Wednesday. I believe it was on December 3rd is when the meeting was. Tom Stenson was a state economist, and Tom Hansen was the commissioner of Office of Management and Budget, and they put this together using statistical information from other resources. But I want to just flip through a couple items in here, and this is one I want to talk on page 2. Is the projected fiscal year 2010-2011 revenues fall 1.156 billion. And basically what this graph is, or chart is reflecting in the current biennium that we're in now. Remember back in June, the legislature and the government couldn't agree So the governor unallotted to balance the budget for this 2010 and 2011 biennium. Since June, so this is only since June, that balanced budget that the governor put into place is $1.156 billion short. And that's 5 months. In 5 months, we've gone down the tube another little over $1 billion, $1.2 billion in the projected revenue. Now, February 5th, I believe it is, when legislature comes into session, by law, they have to balance that budget. They have to come up with $1.2 billion, at least. Where they're going to get it, that's up to the people. If we sit back and go to our Starbucks coffee, they'll tax you out of it. So I don't know, but that's up to the people out there. So that was one of the things that was discussed, was this shortfall, the current shortfall for the current budget.
Let's go back and explain the state budget to the viewers. You made it very, very clear in state law that budget has to be balanced.
Correct.
Has to be balanced.
Has to be balanced.
And the legislators come in and they put together a 2-year budget.
Correct.
For the state of Minnesota.
Correct.
And I think a lot of people forget that. But let's talk about how expensive that budget is.
I'll try and describe the budget, but it took me a while to understand it myself. Let me get my bearings right. This last legislative session, they created a budget for 2010 and 2011, and that starts in October 1st of 2010, and it runs through September 31st of 2011, I believe it is. That's the 2-year cycle. What happens is in the second half of the biennium, the legislatures have the responsibility of making sure that that budget projecting and the balance and everything all balances, and if there's surplus or shortfalls, then they have to make that adjustment. That's what they're going to be doing now in February, between February and May of 2010, is finishing off the budget through the summer of 2011. And then in 2011 and 2012, the next budget cycle starts. I sure hope I got that right, but I think that's how it is. I've studied this multiple times, and it does get a little confusing.
It can be confusing.
Maybe you can explain it better. That's how I understand.
No, you summed it up.
Did I do it? Okay.
Yes, you summed it up nicely, and basically they spend $35 billion, and that's just the general fund.
That's just the general fund. There's multiple funds, and they spend a whole lot more than that in all these other funds. Plus they get federal dollars of about $12 billion.
Right. So you're actually talking, the state of Minnesota has a budget of almost $70 billion that they spend every 2 years, and for a state of 5 million people.
Right.
And they want to spend more.
And they want to spend more.
And the solution that we hear most often is we have to increase taxes.
Right.
How do you feel about that?
Like I said, if we put the genie in the bottle, which we don't, we have to do something. And if we continue spending, we're going to spend ourselves out of being able to have a prosperous society. And I believe all these sciences, economy, the activities, what's going on nationally is reflecting that. The capacity of government to expand beyond the ability of the people to pay.
You have 10 Democrat gubernatorial candidates out there. 8 of the 10 are proposing tax increases, either of expanding the sales tax or a 4th-tier income tax.
Correct.
Do you support either of those?
No. No, we got to stop spending. We can afford government when government follows. When government lives within a means that it's constitutionally mandated, we can afford government. The rest of that is up to us, and helping our neighbors, involved in our church and community, and giving to those organizations, YMCA, Salvation Army, whatever, and a responsible business to participate in the community. One thing that's happened in Minnesota, because I remember when I first moved here in '77. The top 100 corporations in America were headquartered here. And over the decades, for a variety of reasons, they've moved or been bought out by multinational corporations. And once that happens, there's no longer any support to the local community. As an example, the Vikings is an example. There was community support every time there wasn't enough the tickets weren't sold for the home game to be shown on TV. TCF or whoever would come in and buy up 10,000 seats and give them to poor and middle class, poor kids in the community, and so we got to watch the home games and blah blah. That was a community supportive business.